Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another live session with the Hype Magazine. I'm your editor-in-chief, Jerry Dovey, and today I have the distinct honor of having the lead of one of the most impactful, important hip-hop groups in the world, the one and only Speech from Arrested Development. Thank you so much for being with us today, man.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it, man. Fantastic intro. Thank you.
I'll do the best that I can. Look, everybody's talking about you, has talked about you over the years, from Rock the Bells to Source to not double XL. They don't know what they're talking about anyway. Excuse my language. But, historic and impactful journalists have talked about you and talked to you before. But so everybody has their thoughts. I would like to take you from the inside looking out and talk to me about Speech and Arrested Development.
Cool. Yeah. Well, for me, bro, I'm first of all, a dedicated artist. I like art. I love art, and it's what has sort of shaped me. And at the same time, I love history and my people. So that has also shaped a lot of who I am and what I do. My parents basically were entrepreneurs in the Black community in Milwaukee, which is where I'm from.
Right.
And, still are to this day, and very much raised me and my brothers like with Black people, Black business, and striving to overcome the obstacles that have been placed in our way. So that has been sort of like the background of who I am and sort of why I am, you know what I mean? And, further than that, my grandmother on both sides of my family, both were very much activists. And so I think a lot of this sort of ancestral DNA sort of pours inside of me, and then not to mention, the things that I want to do. So there's a lot of little different sort of branches that have been, directed my way.
Okay. So you actually come from media royalty. Your mother owns the oldest Black it's a newspaper in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, the largest. It's the largest Black paper in Wisconsin. It's been there it might be the oldest too. It's been there for 40, I'm going to say 45, 46 years, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And it's called the Milwaukee Community Journal. And I grew up around that. I grew up around, obviously with a newspaper, especially a Black newspaper, you're dealing with a lot of the issues in the community. You're talking with a lot of the leadership in the community and so on and so forth. So like, that's the vibe that I was raised in.
Okay. Yeah. So you got your conversational chops basically from moms
and dad.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Moms and dad. And your dad was an entrepreneur, Fox Trap, right?
Yep.
You're DJing as DJ Peach.
Yep.
For like 13 on until you added the S.
Until I added the S to be Speech.
Yeah, to be Speech. Kind of change the dynamic. What was like the defining moment though that took you from DJ at 13 to a spitter with some of the most cleverly shielded militant lyrics in the game?
Well, thank you, first of all. Honestly, I think it was, I was spitting just regular rhymes in my high school years. So from probably 14 to 17 or 18, somewhere in there, I was spitting rhymes just about girls and cars and money and, stuff like that, just whatever. And then when I heard Public Enemy, it woke me up. Ironically, my parents were always on this tip, but it woke me up musically to what I could be. And I've always felt like, artists, when they put out their work, it gives permission indirectly and subconsciously for other artists to do what they've wanted to do. So, when Prince opened up the doors with so much musicality and playing multiple instruments and producing his own albums, it gave other artists permission to try the same thing. When Public Enemy came out and talked about politics and Black Panthers and Farrakhan and this, that, and the third, it gave me permission to do some of the things that I had been raised on already. And so I know Arrested Development has done that for many, many artists too. So yeah, so that's what sort of changed from just rhyming about whatever to rhyming about political issues was when I first heard PE.
Okay. And out of that exposure comes Mr. Wendell and Revolution, very iconic and important releases. What sparked those, and what gave you the courage and the intestinal fortitude to drop those pieces?
Mr. Wendell was really based on real life. Me and Headliner were often in a studio on Edgewood here in Atlanta, which is where I live now. I've been here since 1987. Okay. And we were in this studio, and a lot of the homeless still are to this day over by the Edgewood area. And so they would stop by the studio. We would talk with them, build with them, talk about politics, sex, love, money, anything. And it was cool because they had so much knowledge, and I was totally surprised by just how whole they were as human beings, and you look at the homeless and it's easy to think that they're just sort of cardboard figures in your peripheral view as you go about your business. And it wasn't like that. They were full human beings with real stories, real lives, real dreams, real ambitions, and real issues that, we talked about. So that song came from being around that atmosphere. Then Revolution was thanks to my man Spike Lee, and Chuck D for that matter, because Spike Lee was doing the X film.
Right.
And he initially asked Public Enemy to do something for it, but they were going through some drama with Professor Griff at the time. And Chuck D said, yo, what about Arrested Development? I had already reached out to Spike anyway. We had connected. I think that between Chuck and the fact that I already reached out to him, it was just like destined to be. So then the Revolution joint was me really striving to tap into the heart of Malcolm, and make sure that the song tapped into what his spirit is, and especially his entire journey. So that was the goal with that track.
Okay. What was the most satisfying about completing those tracks for you?
For me personally, Mr. Wendell, it was really one of our, in fact, it was set to be our first single. So for that reason alone, it was a special song. I had wrote the chorus for that 5 years prior to ever recording it. And so it was just one of those little choruses that was just stuck in my little tape recorder. Back then we had real cassette tape recorders. And so I just had it there, and to see it come to fruition was just a dream come true. Plus it was one of our, singles from the first album. So that was hot. Then Revolution was, just outstanding because working with Spike Lee had always been one of my favorite directors. And just being able to capture any kind of music on the freaking X soundtrack, going to the premiere, being with Denzel, being with, all of the various actors, Angela Bassett, and, just so many incredible people. Shooting the video in Brooklyn, probably about 500 extras. We shot that video in about 7 hours, which was outstanding. 3 locations in 7 hours with 500 extras,
wow,
costumes, you name it. I mean, that's just the brilliance of Spike Lee and his team. So that was just great. It was an all-around fantastic experience.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you've manifested through your music and your messages. First of all, what kind of slickness did you have to grow up with to hide the militants inside of those joints? I mean, really, we talk about people who make you think or you don't catch something right away, but Arrested Development and has always made you like lean in to really catch what's going on. More than the surface, it's more than the music. So, how did you develop that skill?
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. for me personally, number one, it was all about being authentic. You know, Public Enemy comes from a certain spot. They come from New York. They are, you know, Long Island. They got more of a militant energy. Professor Griff was their Minister of Information, and you know, they had S1Ws. They had that whole sort of Black Panther sort of, you know, prototype in a sense. And Arrested Development was very opposite of that, but obviously had the same goals. So we're from the South. The group started in the South, and the South is more Southern Baptist hospitality. It's less militant by nature, even historically, and not to say that it wasn't radical and it wasn't determined. I mean, if you look at the lives of those that, you know, did their activism in the South, its determination is unprecedented. You know, it could be compared to anybody else, but the style of which they went about it was very different than, like, let's say, you know, Oakland or, you know, a New York, so, or Harlem, you know. So I think that just that alone was why we sort of came about it differently. And me as a lyricist, I'm more of a heart guy. So like, I like talking heart to heart, person to person. And I like trying to make big ideas relatable, almost like parables. So that's sort of my approach with how I talk to people in general. And that's why I think the music had that. For me, I never tried to hide it as much as I tried to partner it with this positive energy. So like, you know, songs like Mr. Wendell or songs like even Revolution, a lot of our music has this celebratory energy to it musically. And then at the exact time, lyrically, it's got a little bit more of a, you know, straightforward energy to it, but yet still trying to connect, you know, with the heart of the person. So I think that that's where that came from.
You guys actually, like, it was danceable and, you know, you could get into the groove and all that good stuff. But at the same time, you're like throwing these alarm clocks in the graveyard, waking up the dead, you know what I mean? And it was amazing for me because right about that time, you know, I'm heading back into the military for my second or third time. And I was like, they got me young, they got me fucked up. And here I am I'm listening to Arrested Development. I'm like, man, what am I doing to myself? Why am I not standing on this foundation as opposed to listening to the trash that we're being fed? You know what I mean? I'm a patriot, don't get it twisted, but I understand that being misled is just being misled. And that's the honest truth.
That's real.
What kind of backlash did you guys get since you weren't as straightforward and you know, headbanging? What kind of backlash did you guys get for your messaging?
You know, that's an interesting thing because we did get a backlash for a few reasons. One is I think it was just so freaking popular. You know, being militant, being political, and yet being so popular, not just amongst Blacks, but whites and Asians and people around the world. So, you know, we sold 4 million albums. We're doing stadium tours and whites are in the crowd, and anybody, whether it's Snoop or Tupac or anybody else, that once you get a certain size, you're gonna have a lot of white crowds. But we had that, but the music also didn't feel as militant as a PE. So it was easy for some people to say, oh, well, they sold out, which is, you know, obviously far from the truth, but that's what a lot of people were able to say easily. And then also some people said, well, we created the music to be pop or to be, you know, watered down. And of course that was ridiculous too, because we had no idea, you know, that was our first album. So we had no idea how well or unwell that was going to be received. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that was some of the backlash. And it's ironic, man, because, you know, even our first album, initially, when it first came out, like Tennessee, actually, the single, when it first came out, Black radio didn't touch it. And ironically, alternative radio was touching it and rocking with it. MTV was first picked up on a video channel. Unfortunately, we didn't have any Black people, Black video outlets at the time rocking it. And then Blacks got on it a little after that. So there's just some, some things that we as a people got to work out as far as making sure that the stuff that we're supporting is able to have the width of being a full human being instead of just being, everybody being an NWA or a PE, but we allow ourselves and our music and our arts to be all of that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's who we are as a people. We're all of those things. We're not just one of those things. So I think that's what was happening.
I think what resonated with me and the crew that I roll with, about Arrested Development was that the devil was kind of peeking his head from around the corner with the denigration and the drug culture and the gang culture and glorification of that negative side, that dark side. And the record companies were starting to take advantage of that. And, for me, in my humble opinion, that was like the precursor. It was Black America's National Enquirer or Daily Globe, that negative stuff.
Yeah.
And they took advantage of it. And I think, what really resonated with us was that you gave us the truth, you did it in a classy way, and never did my mother get called a bitch.
Right.
My sister, what I mean?
Yeah.
My future daughters.
Yeah.
That I think resonated with me. And the gun culture wasn't, in the 80s when it was the Wild Wild West on LA and New York and Philly and all that. That's what stood out for me and what made you guys more powerful and maybe even more of a threat to the establishment.
I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that, bro. I think that the establishment can tell when a message is consistent and revolutionary as opposed to messages canceling each other out. So some artists will do some conscious stuff on their record and then totally like opposite stuff on the same record. And I think the powers that be can see the cancellation of basically the real point of any revolutionary tactics. And they're not so scared of that. It's like, okay, cool. They're talking a little bit of consciousness, but on the rest of the record, they're really doing this. And so we'll push this over here and it's going to be cool. But with an Arrested Development, you couldn't ignore it. Like every song was about that. Basically, if you start listening to the lyrics, every song's about that. The establishment is constantly being under threat, not to mention melodically and stylistically, it's reaching ears that it wouldn't normally reach. So then that's another threat, so then it's coming home to their houses, what I'm saying? And their kids are listening to it and listening like, wait a minute, Pop, wait a minute, Mom, what about this? What about that? Yeah. So I think it was definitely more of a threat, like PE was, or X-Clan or many others as well, who would over time be relegated, with their releases at least, would be relegated to sort of underground as opposed to the huge releases that they once were. You know what I mean?
Right. Shit is like crack, man. It wasn't a threat until it hit the white neighborhoods.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
right. Yeah. That's just what I feel about the music. And I have been at hip hop shows, places like South by Southwest, big festivals and things like that, where the majority of the crowd for the OG hip hop shows are white.
Yes.
And they know every freaking word.
Every word. Yep.
And I'm looking around and you see the black sitting there with the arms folded and the mouth closed. And the white kids, hands up.
Right, exactly.
Giving it to you, giving it back, giving you energy. And I'm going, wow, how scary did that have to be for J. Edgar Hoover and Richard Nixon, for Arrested Development to be reaching people like that, the Reagans and things like that, the establishment. So shout out to you, man, and salute to you for the intestinal fortitude that you exhibited, in doing what you do. Man, look.
Thank you, man.
You've been interviewed by everybody that Cat, Uncle, and Dog. What is the question that we have yet to ask you that you always wanted to answer?
That's a great question. I don't really have anything right off bat, but I think it probably would have something to do with the sort of like the lyricism of that first album. So like and the second album, but especially that first album. Um, songs like Dawn of the Dreads. I always wanted to explain that song because most people have never gotten the depth of that song. And then songs like Ease My Mind on Zingalama our second album, same difference. So if someone was to ask me about like Dawn of the Dreads, which never got asked, so I do know.
It's asked now. It's asked now. It's asked now.
It's asked now. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like Dawn of the Dreads was about sort of a three-pronged thing throughout the entire song. So like the beginning of the lit, and so I always wanted people to ask because I put so much thought and time into it. So that's what I'm saying this. But like, the lyrics of Dawn of the Dreads basically starts off with a nighttime party. And then it goes into the dawn, meaning, the morning,
right?
And then it goes back into the night. And so during this sort of transition of the day, one of the points of the song is a love story, and it's between myself and a woman named Dawn, and she has dreads. And so I'm learning, about all of these sort of plastic women with fake this, fake that. And throughout the night, I run into Dawn. Well, really, when the morning comes, I run into Dawn, and she's a dread with a conscious mind, and we're like totally in sync. Things is working in an amazing way. That's one part of the story. The other part of the story is obviously the literal day to night sort of situation where it's starting at night, we get into the morning, and it goes on into the rest of that day. And then the third part is about a dawn of a consciousness. So it's just basically talking about as we go on in this hip hop, industry, that we go from a place of darkness and allow that dawn to really come into full consciousness. And that's the three-prong approach that I was doing. But throughout the lyrics, you'll see that I stuck to that concept, throughout the whole song. Same difference with People Every Day, where, I never mix up the term nigga and what that means in the song, the term African and what that means, and the term Black and what that means. So like trying to keep those themes throughout the entire song, those are something that I was really working on a lot.
Man, how long did it take for you to find your unique voice though?
It took a while because I've been rhyming since I was 13, basically, DJing and rhyming. And when I got to be about 18 or 19, maybe that's when I started really finding my voice. So probably 4 or 5 years of trying a lot of different stuff. I was very influenced by Run DMC, LL Cool J, NWA, that whole type of energy I was very inspired by, but it really wasn't my authentic voice. I was trying to be like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And but when Arrested Development came out, it was way more authentic and, way more about what I am, so I think that that's also why it resonated so well with the public, because they could feel something real from it.
And when you found and delivered through your unique voice, and it allowed your peers to finally vote for you,
Yeah,
pulling a couple of Grammys. You know what I mean? And showing that we respect what you're doing, even though we're over here making this money.
Right.
We do respect what you're doing.
No doubt about it.
And I think that's the benefit. People talk bad about the Grammys, but it is a peer review kind of situation. So that's the positive.
I agree.
I think that's the respect that you were shown by the industry. And then what was it? Was it 2019? You guys got Black Music Honors Award?
I think it was 2019.
2019.
Yeah, we got Black Music Honors, which was fantastic. Legacy Award. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that represents 30 years, more than 30 years of power within the music industry. What I mean? Early on, I know that nobody was getting their props in the publishing and all that good stuff, but what was like the biggest surprise about the business side of the music business when you really woke up to it?
Just how many hands is in the pot, from managers to booking agencies to speaking agencies to, obviously the record label, the publishing companies. There's just so many hands in the pot that you wouldn't understand unless you start getting into the major label deals how convoluted it is and how much business is sort of being taken from you. So as a group, even though we're writing and doing a lot of this work, so many other people that did none of that is making so much money from all of the transactions that we're doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's only gotten worse. Not to be a Debbie Downer on the situation, but it's only gotten worse with the invent of streaming, and unfortunately we get even less now. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I wouldn't have thought was that way.
I would think that somebody would have woke up, and with the advent of streaming, and the internet, 1993 or 83, whenever it was that the internet first became public, and Napster and ShareBear and all those outlets were out there, you know what I mean? I think I thought by now they would have woken up to be like one of the best pimps and get first count on your money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? With your product being your music, and saying no. So I really love the joint ventures like cats or like Yo Gotti are doing with his CMG label. With he started out with Sony, now he's with somebody else, and T-Pain is doing this thing with RCA. So I'm really liking that, and that Ghazi and Empire are giving people such great opportunities to get first count on their money and the bear share of the thing. So I know that you've probably been doing major press, but I got to talk about Don't Fight Your Demons that you dropped in 2020. Amazing body of work.
Thank you, bro.
And here we are, in this day and age when people are starting to appreciate the lyricism and real music again. The mumble rappers are starting to dissipate.
Yeah.
And thank whatever higher power. So I really appreciate that. Of course, now I'm old and art is art and all that good stuff, but I want to be able to understand what it is that you're spitting about. Talk to me about Don't Fight Your Demons and how in 2020, when you dropped that was received and it's done quite well.
It did. It has. It still is. That record would have never existed without the pandemic. So the pandemic changed everybody's plans, including us. We were about to go on tour throughout Europe and Dubai and Africa, and we had all these dates booked. Pandemic came, everything closed down, and money stopped, but also life as we knew it stopped. And so everybody's sort of trapped in their house and quarantining from everybody else. Right. The wildlife is running the streets, downtown Atlanta, downtown New York. And it's just, everything is stopped. And so that gave me a chance to slow down, look around for music that I really enjoy and producers that I really liked. A dude named Configure out of the UK was one of the dudes that I was looking at. And I asked him if we could mess with a song or two together. And we did. The camaraderie was so great and so positive that we just started vibing more. Chris Acosta, of course, myself producing other stuff. So we had some really good material. And that was really the beginnings of Don't Fight Your Demon. We released it in, I think, September, if I'm not mistaken, 2020. And it got way more love than I was expecting. I thought the record was brilliant, but to be honest, I think because everybody was in their house, locked away, everybody was more attentive. And like you said, the mumble rap thing was starting to decline, and the whole atmosphere of love of music was just changing. And I think people really was like, yo, Arrested Development, what y'all doing? Plus, I think the beginning of the album started off with a song called Back Down. And I think that really captured people's attention who thought they knew exactly what Arrested Development would bring. And Back Down was so much harder than what we normally had done that I think it just surprised people enough to make them listen again and open their minds to what we were doing. So yeah, it's done extremely well. The vinyl's done well, the downloads, and all of that's independent on my label Vagabond. So that's love. Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. Speaking of vinyl, I got to take you back to 13, man. When you started DJing, it was
Yeah.
blends. It was fade out and bring it
That's
in.
right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So with the advent of the scratch and
Yep.
the mix, what was the first records that you mixed and scratched?
That's a great question. Bro, I was so inspired by Grand Mixer DST. I saw him on the Grammys with Herbie Hancock, and I was inspired by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. They put out a record called Adventures on the Wheels of Steel. It was Grandmaster Flash spinning basically Good Times and, Rapper's Delight and a bunch of stuff. And it was incredible. And it was the first time I'd ever heard anybody mix records, because I'm not from New York, so I didn't get to see the scene firsthand.
Right.
So I'm listening to it on this record and on the Grammys, watching it, and I started mixing, and I wanted to learn. And I was the first DJ in Milwaukee that I know of that was doing that. And so I started mixing things like Freedom, which was an R&B jam that Grandmaster Flash and them used by the same title. They called their song Freedom. Good Times, mixing all of that kind of stuff, just really trying to mimic and learn from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, but Grandmaster Flash in particular on the wheels. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. Then like hearing people like Mixmaster Ice from UTFO, rest in peace, Kango, that was like mind blowing. Hearing DJ Jazzy Jeff, you know what I'm saying, and the Fresh Prince, mind blowing, the scratches that I was hearing. So these things were like giving me ideas on how to cut, mix, blend, in the hip hop way of blending. So yeah, all of them people inspired me a whole lot.
Okay. How excited were you when you finally figured it out, man?
Dude, there's no words to say or describe like how fired up I was. Like, because the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And really, I understand that, but this was a fusion of things that had never been done before. So the fusion was so new. And mixing this whole idea of scratch and beatbox and breakdance and MC and DJing, these things were just unheard of at the time. And so a lot of the youth that are in hip hop but don't understand the history, don't understand just how powerful and how revolutionary this music was. And for decades, music was really for the elite in a sense. You had to get on a record label, you had to be signed by that label and promoted by that label, produced by some other producer most of the time. A lot of times even your songs were written by someone else. Rap, on the other hand, was the opposite. It was for the people, by the people, rhyming straight, straight through the record with sometimes no choruses. I mean, it was just revolutionary in every single way. So yeah, I was blown away by the whole, elements of hip hop and of course DJing as well. Just blown away.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could make music, but I can't. I can't sing. I can't rap. I can't play. I can play Mary Had a Little Lamb on the piano. It's only 3 chords, 3 keys. So pretty easy. But I just love it when I hear something special and when something is beyond the music for me and it hits me like in my gut. You know what I mean? Like, when I physically lean forward and go, I gotta hear that again.
Yeah.
I'm one of them cats that used to put the vinyl on and would wear a hole in the record. I would have to buy 2 of a record.
Yeah, I'm with you.
With no DJ skills, it was just because I knew I was gonna wear this damn record out.
Yeah.
And I always
it used to get so bad. The beginning of the record would just have crackles, yeah. And
my replacement needles, I wasn't using the diamond, I was using emeralds. The emerald needles because they were going to last longer than the little diamond splinters that they were. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's hot. That's hot.
Like, okay. Yeah. So we're running short on time, and I would love to invite you back again.
Yeah, let's do it again, man. The conversation is great.
I really appreciate you. Latest album, For the Fucking Love.
Yep.
Dropped in 2021.
Yep.
You guys are out on the road.
Well,
or
wanting to be.
wanting to go out on the road.
Exactly. A lot of postponements and cancellations, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to in 2022 besides getting outside?
Yeah, truth is, really, it is touring. I really want to get back on the road. I want to see the people more. We got a lot of new material. You know, we've got Don't Fight Your Demons, For That For Love record. We got all the classics. There's so much that we want to share with the fans, and we love the fans. And so we do have a tour scheduled for all of April in the UK. You know, going throughout, I think the UK, and I know the United States, I think Dubai. So I really want to get to these places, you know what I'm saying? And I hope that COVID doesn't steal it from us again like it did last year. So that's the prayer right now.
Okay. We got like 60 seconds left before they cut us off. Unfortunately. Next time though, I'm gonna upgrade the account just to talk to you. So we can talk for as long as you want to talk, man.
Word up. Thank you, bro.
Most important advice you could give the youngsters coming up that really want to celebrate hip hop?
Yeah.
40 seconds.
Be yourself. Do not be what you're hearing on the radio. You could be inspired by that, but be yourself. We are looking forward to hearing you, what you bring. That's it.
Amazing. I tell them that all the time. Hopefully the OG speech is making an impact. Man, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to
thank you, bro.
Close out before they cut us out. I've loved it. I'm honored. I really appreciate everything that you do for the culture, and wishing you much continued success in another 30, 40 years. You know what I mean?
Salute.